Welcome back to the Maximum Cricket Podcast and another daily review of the New Zealand versus England Test Series. This time it's day one of the third Test that has New Zealand finishing 225 for 5. Whose day is it? Well, let's find out.
It's a yes bank maximum, the first of this contest. Oh, that is brilliant. It's a hero maximum. On the ground, down the ground, another hero maximum.
Let's start off with the New Zealand side, as the good news was the introduction of Neil Wagner and the reintroduction of Captain Kane into the lineup. The question was always going to be who for. The obvious one was Wagner in for Jamieson, as Big Kyle was injured and the whole country was going to riot in a heartbeat. The whole country was going to riot if the heartbeat that is Wags was not on the side. But what about Kane? I had thought it was between Will Young and Michael Bracewell, with the most likely option being Bracewell and going with an all-seam attack. Well, I was way off, as they went for Williamson in and Henry out, a like-for-like replacement, obviously. This leaves New Zealand with only 3 seam bowlers, Wagner, Bolt and Southey. Southey, I will remind you, that looked absolutely gassed in the second test. So how do we fix that? Oh, what about if we give him some more overs? That's a bold strategy. The other option as a seamer will be DARYL Mitchell, who New Zealand have been very reluctant to bowl thus far. He's bowled a total of 2 overs in the whole series. That doesn't look like a player they back for sure. When you look at New Zealand's squad on Cricket Info, they have Michael Bracewell down as a top order bat. Why is that? Maybe because that's what he is. So what's he doing at 8? Well, New Zealand have essentially picked him as a specialist spinner. So to be honest, you've got to feel bad for Ajaz Patel. 2 tests ago, he takes 10 for. The next test, he only bowls 2 overs, and now he can't even get in the side. They're essentially picking a guy in Bracewell who averages 47 with the ball in first-class cricket. Sure, he bowled well in the last test, but if he's going to be a 4th option with the ball, that's a lot of pressure in only his 2nd test. For England, they were expected to name an unchanged side for the 3rd time until Jimmy Anderson had a reported ankle injury, so he was rested. If the series was 1-1, I would be surprised if Jimmy misses this test. But at 2-0, and with the Indian test next week, they have probably decided it's best to rest their ankle for that test. This was a chance for the exciting Jamie Overton to make his debut. Jamie has reported to be able to get the ball up around the 140s and over. He's a big, strong lad that bowls a heavy ball. Yes, that's a massive cliche, that the heavy ball yarn, and no one actually knows what it means, but he does it. He bowled very well on day 1 and managed to take his first test wicket in Devon Conway. The one thing I'll say is, why is Craig Overton in the squad? Craig is, of course, the twin brother to Jamie and has been in the squad since the start of the series. Now, I've personally never been Craig's biggest fan. I think he's a little slow, and I think Jamie was the better choice. But it makes you think, why was Craig in the squad if they obviously didn't want to pick him? New Zealand won the toss, and with that, you would assume they picked 8 batters, so it must be a grand seamer, right? Nope, wrong again, as Kane chose to bat, and in fact, Stokes said he would have batted. Again, it's very odd to pick 8 batters on what everyone has suggested to be a very flat pitch. Well, tell Tom Latham it was flat, as he nicked off to Joe Root first over to Stuart Broad. If I told you Broad had got a wicket of a left-hander, you would know he's gone round the wicket, drawn the edge, and it's gone somewhere in the court. Now, Simon Dawes suggested that this should be Williamson's last test as captain of the test team. He thinks that captaining all 3 formats is too much, which I don't disagree with, but I'm not sure it's the test team that he should let go of. I think New Zealand has really missed Williamson's leadership over the last year, and although Latham is a fine leader, his batting has really struggled of late. Latham only averages 31 as captain of New Zealand as opposed to 41 when he isn't, so I'm not sure captaincy to Latham is really going to help the team, because we need his runs. Latham and the rest of the top order have been very underwhelming yet again on this tour. I have said it before, but I really thought with a top order of Latham, Williamson, Conway and Nicholls that New Zealand's top order would be a strength in this series. Again, couldn't have been more wrong. Aren't we lucky that New Zealand picked 8 batsmen? It was brilliant captaincy from Stokes to bring on Leach in the 12th over with a relatively new ball, because the first ball he bowled slid on with the arm and trapped Young LBW at 35 for 2. Next, Williamson looked good for his 31, but Broad set him up with a couple of induckers, then managed to get one to leave the bat to take the outside edge. It's a bit of a worrying sign that Williamson keeps going out in that similar fashion. I know it was a decent ball from Broad, and I know he set him up, but it's about 5th or 6th stump he's playing at, and that's just not the Williamson we've been accustomed to. So if Williamson doesn't know where his off stump is, it's a real problem. Then a moment that Jamie Overton has dreamed about since he was a little kid, I bet. His first test wicket, and a big one at 83 for 4 when he cleaned up Devon Conway. It's been a disappointing tour for Conway so far. For a player that dominated this game this time last year, to come away with only 150 this tour must be disappointing for him. Then, and possibly the weirdest dismissal you'll see, at 123 for 5, Henry Nicholls come down the track to Leach, absolutely smoked it down the ground. Unfortunately, this time for New Zealand, the ball can't stop finding the middle of DARYL Mitchell's bat as it flew off Mitchell's bat all the way to mid-off, and the catch was taken by Lees. When it's your day, eh? Now, when you win the toss and bat, and at tee you are 123 for 5, it's definitely the bowler's day. Unfortunately for England, that brought the new Old Faithful duo, DARYL Mitchell and Tom Blundell together, and funnily enough, they couldn't get them out again, and at the close, it's 2-2-5 for 5, with Blundell on 45 and Mitchell passing 50 for the fourth time in 5 bats this series at 78 not. Although it's been England's day for sure, you would think. It could have been a hell of a lot better had they reviewed an LBW shout of Potts when Mitchell was on 8. It kind of looked like Mitchell got an inside edge, but when they showed the replay, Mitchell actually only hit his pad, and the ball would have been crashing into middle. Having said that, with a relatively new ball at England's disposal on day 2, I still see them on top. If they can get a couple in the first hour and restrict New Zealand to around 300, there is plenty of runs out there. Plus, with New Zealand being a bowler down from the jump, if England can get in and make the bowlers toil, they can really start to dominate. Until then, I'll catch you tomorrow and we'll have a yarn about it.